نام خداوند جان و خرد از این برتر اندیشه بر نگذرد. In this video, I would like to talk about one of the most important book of Naser-i Khusraw, which is Wajh-i Din, it means face of religion, and I will come to talk about this book in a minute. But before talking about that book, it is important to know that who is Naser-i Khusraw himself, and then coming to critically analyze the book. That why this book has remained quite influential in Badakhshan and particularly in wider Ismaili context and particularly within the context of Afghanistan and those who are not following Naser-i Khusraw traditions. Naser-i Khusraw was born in Balkh, which is now located in northern part of Afghanistan. But according to what he writes in his Safarnama, the book of travel or travelogue, he was born in Badakhshan, which is now in Tajikistan, but it was that time coming under the wider context of Balkh, which was one of the most important cities in Khorasan, and there are a lot of influential Persian philosophers and as well as poets such as Ibn Sina, Naser-i Khusraw himself, Rabi'a Balkhi, and so on and so forth. We do not have that much information about Naser-i Khusraw himself before starting his 40-year journey to Egypt and back to Balkh. What comes is really from his books. For example, when he was writing or when he was writing his poem or other books, he was pointing out that how, for example, his hometown or where he was coming from was really important, and there isn't also that much information about where he really studied. But what comes from his book, he went to India, for example. In his Wajh-i Din, he is giving such kind of examples about the Hindu traditions, and generally we can say that he was quite a learned man of his time, and he is saying that there wasn't any kind of science that he were not engaged with during his time. But in his Safarnama he writes that after 40 years he was asleep and he saw in his dream that someone came to him and asked that why you are drinking, for example, and so on and so forth. Although it is open to different kinds of interpretations, but one of the interpretation can be, for example, maybe is it drinking, we can say that was it really drinking wine, sharab, or was it, for example, he was in a kind of dream or a kind of intoxicated in a way, spiritually or intellectually, or was there, for example, some kind of questions on why and how, or some kind of philosophical complicated challenges. We don't really know for that, and there isn't also a kind of explanation, and there are different interpretations. Also for his travel, it's not quite clear that was he Ismaili before he started his journey, or after, for example, he made the Fatimid court and particularly meeting the Ismaili chief Dai al-Da'at, who was Al-Mu'id Fiddin Shirazi, who was also from Shiraz, Iran. It means that two outstanding Persian scholars of their time, they were now meeting there. And also, he writes, for example, in his one of his books that when he made, for example, Imam, he is becoming his body or his dark soul, for example, was like night, but it comes like a bright day. And also, while coming back to Khorasan, he was in Nishapur, as he was chosen as Hujjat-i Khorasan or Hujjah of Khorasan, and of course Nishapur is a part of Khorasan, and he made some challenges. For example, there were people who are looking for Naser-i Khusraw, and also in Balkh he was forced and he was in exile, and even in his poem it comes up that he is pointing that how he missed his hometown Khorasan, although Khorasan is not something clear-cut that we know the part that is it a certain limited geographical area. but sometimes even Badakhshan is coming under part of Khorasan, but sometimes it is not coming. But from Naser-i Khusraw perspective of that, which we have in his Divan, is that he's saying, for example, Salam to Khorasan, not to everyone, but for the learned people and those who are scholars of their time. And uh, so in this part, Badakhshan is not coming in Khorasan related points. But as he was chosen as Hujjati Khorasan, and he started, and he mainly expanded his dawah in Badakhshan dominated area, where it was ruled by an Ismaili governor or Amir or Wali, we can say. Uh, okay. After understanding a little bit about Naser-i Khusraw, let's come to one of the most important book that he has written and he has remained quite influential, which is called Wajh-i Din, and it has been written from one of the one manuscript version. It's not from even more versions. And Wajh-i Din itself has been taken from Arabic words Wajh and Din. Wajh in Arabic means face, and Din means religion. Din it's not quite clear. Is it Arabic word or is it a Persian word? But it can be pluralized, for example, in Arabic, Din, Adyan, and in Persian it's use the same, sometimes Din, Adyan, and sometimes, for example, Dinha, and mainly Adyan is used. So it means that it's quite both words are used in Persian and as well as in Arabic contexts. But this is a Persian phrase because it's Wajh-i Din, it's not Wajh-a-Din. So here we can see that it's a Persian text. And the other thing is that he wrote all of his books in Persian, except one of his Divan. He has two Divans, two collection of poetry, one in Arabic and one in Persian. Unfortunately, the Arabic one has been lost, but the Persian version is still behind. Regarding what he did, he introduced his book at the very beginning of the Wajh-i Din. He says that this is about the fundamental of Sharia. For example, he says it's about Shahada, it means Muslim confession, and Tahara, purification, Namaz, or Salah, means daily prayer, and Rosa, Wilayat, Zakat, Hajj, and Amr bil Maruf and Nahy Munkar. They are just kind of he calls principle of Sharia. But when he is talking about the principle or the fundamental parts of religion or deen, he means Islam, of course. He means only the seven. It means the Shahada, Namaz, Roza, Hajj, Zakat, Jihad, and Wilayat. It means confession, prayer, almsgiving, fasting during month of Ramadan, Jihad, and Wilayah, where he means following Imam of the time. Considering these with analysis of the pillar of Islam, or Daim al-Islam of Qazi al-Naman, the chief Dai of Ismaili in 4th century, and Naser-i Khusraw was living in 5th century. It is in common area, it is 11th century. So we can have that from Sharia perspective, for example, his book is mainly like the first volume of Qazi al-Naman's book, Daim al-Islam. But it is very brief in terms of Qazi Numan is bringing a lot of, for example, hadith or traditions from the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, and as well as early Shia Imams, including Imam Jafar al-Sadiq and Muhammad and his father, Muhammad al-Baqir, peace be upon them. So, but with some kind of differences that Qazi Numan, for example, is putting Wilaya as a kind of broader term. He means that he is bringing, for example, believing and also following God, Allah, Prophet Muhammad, and as well as Imam of the time. But Naser-i Khusraw is putting, for example, Shahadat, the first of the 7 pillars of Islam, and Wilaya, the last one. But Naser-i Khusraw always emphasizes on concept of Imamat and starts his book about recognizing Imam and also recognizing or following Imam is like following Prophet and following Prophet is following God. So coming to the another part of the another aspect of the book, uh, beside considering the esoteric or Zahiri perspective, and regarding batini perspective, unlike uh, Oman, who also wrote the Tawil of the Islam or pillars of Islam, where Tawil means uh, the real meaning. Something refers back to its origin. It has been translated like that in English. And also in Arabic, it means ta'wil, as well as it has been taken from awal. It means taking something back to its origin, where awal, first. In that sense, Naser-i Khusraw frequently points out about the real meaning, what he says, or the ta'wil of the book. For example, when he talks about prayer, he's saying what is the ta'wil of prayer. When he talks about uh, for example, almsgiving, he is giving the example. For Tawil of prayer or daily namaz, he is saying that uh, the main purpose of namaz is getting or uh, uh, being or in a kind of association with the friends of God, which he means Imam or the prophets. And as Imam that time was not available to the whole community or his followers, so there was some kind of hierarchy. It means that first there was Imam, and then there was Hujjah or proof, and so on and so forth. So Naser-i Khusraw is also pointing about uh, it means hududi jismani. It means that those jismani or those who are physical beings, authorities in the world, and as well as for the spiritual that he is talking about. For example, aql al-kulli, nafs al-kulli, and so on and so forth. So it means that he is also touching upon philosophical perspective, considering Wajh-i Din in general his philosophical perspective. For example, Zad al-Musafirin and Gushaish and Rihaish in Jamiat al-Hikmat, and we can say that it's a kind of new Platonic philosophy that Naser-i Khusraw was following. But in Wajh-i Din, he is not pointing out and he is not citing from other uh, philosophers. He is just directly writing without quoting about Aql al-Kulli, Nafs al-Kulli, and as well as Amr. He is saying that God is above everything. And for example, the concept of ilm or knowledge is something which is limited, and God is above that. So we, as God is above that, we never get that much knowledge to know God. It means we cannot attribute anything to God. So he's saying that what is coming from God is only the Amr. It means kun fayakun, be, then it was. But it as coming into being. And he means this a kind of command of God. And from that, there is Aql al-Kulli, it means universal intellect. And from that, it is the universal soul or Nafs al-Kulli or Nafsi Kulli. So this is quite like what uh, Sistani or Sajistani, Abu Yaqub Sajistani has in his Kafsh al-Majub, which is also written in Persian. And we can say that mm, philosophy of new Platonic philosophy, what's introduced by Abu Yaqub Sajistani or Sistani, remained dominant in Fatimid philosophical system, while the man, that Hamiduddin Kirmani, who was contemporary to Ibn Sina, another outstanding Muslim philosopher, quite same about he is talking about 10 intellects, but we cannot see that in later Fatimid literature. And considering this book, It is a highly influential not only in wider Persian Ismailis but also among Badakhshan Ismailis and those who are following. I mean, uh, Ismailis of Afghanistan, Badakhshan, Tajikistan, Badakhshan, and as well as northern Pakistan and some part of China. Uh, so. mm this is a kind of theological debate that the book is introducing, particularly towards the beginning of the book. There is a kind of theological debate that he is talking about the concept of imam, that who is the right imam, and so on and so forth. And he was challenging, for example, the other Muslim communities without naming them, but he is mainly concentrating on the concept of Shia and imam from Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali and connecting them back to the Prophet. And she is bringing such kind of reasonings and philosophical and theological reasonings. Also, this book is quite common in among Hazara Ismailis. By the Hazara Ismailis, I don't mean that those who are ethnically Hazara. I mean that those who have Hazara culture and they mainly dominant in Hazara dominated areas. For example, in central part of Afghanistan and northern part of Afghanistan. So this book is giving kind of theological debate. So Hazara Ismailis, and generally the Ismailis, they find it quite helpful that while they are going, for example, with debate with the other uh, Muslim. So we can say that the other aspect to consider this book to be quite essential is that the book is written in Persian, so people they didn't know Arabic, and it was difficult for them to uh, know about your, for example, history, about your faith, particularly a couple of centuries before. So this book was one of the main sources, and it has remained quite influential. We can say that this is a kind of as Quran is can be found generally in every Muslim's house, and Hafiz where the one of Hafiz can be found in every Persian house. And uh, it may be true that we can find Wajh-i Din in every Ismailis home, particularly in Afghanistan and among Hazara Ismailis too. So we can say that generally Quran, Diwan of Hafiz, and Wajh-i Din are the three dominant books that can be found in uh, um, Ismailis houses across Afghanistan and particularly in Badakhshan and Hazara Ismailis. To be also considering some of the aspects of the book, that is it also helpful absolutely for the Ismailis or not. Of course, like any other books, we can consider the strength as well as some points which needs improvement. One of the things is that as Naser-i Khusraw is going, for example, kind of theological debate with other Muslims. Maybe we can say that, for example, he is strictly considering that those who are following Imam, or following Prophet, or following God. Maybe considering a kind of diversity of interpretations, which is welcomed among Ismailis of the modern world, and also considering some improvement in science-related aspects that Nasser Khusraw is giving, for example, about astronomy and also the number of the prophets. So that may be that can be challenged, but generally the book is quite influential. And thank you so much for your nice attention. And that's the end of the video.